Hey, buddy, it's Dan Morey with Staffing Monthly, the industry's digital publication where we talk about all things recruiting, marketing, sales, and leadership, where we bring thought leaders to you to share actionable insights about what you need to be aware of in this industry and what things you need to be doing and implementing into your business to help you grow. This month is no different. We are focusing on strategic planning. It is that time of year where we're really looking at how do we finish the year strong and how do we set ourselves up for success next year. And that is so important. And I've actually gone out and got one of the foremost thought leaders, one of the most trusted advisors in this space, Tom Kosnik of the Visus Group. And he is somebody that has really the ear and the minds of the staffing leaders because he actually hosts so many roundtables where he brings industry leaders together. They share ideas, concepts, they face challenges together. He brings in thought leadership. He provides his perspective based on a long, successful tenure in this industry, as well as working with organizations on organizational development that includes intentionality and being purposeful about how you build your organization. And really what his masterful skill is profit improvement. Everything he does is with intentionality to drive healthier margins and ultimately healthier profits. And that's why I've invited Tom out here this month to talk about what leaders should be focusing on right now. So Tom, thanks for being here and sharing your knowledge with us today.
Dan, welcome and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Please remind me for the next time I have a speaking engagement to have you come and introduce me. That was wonderful. Thank you.
I'll just be your professional handler here. That's great. So yeah, my pleasure, man. I'm truly am grateful to have you here. And it is that time of year, man. Like we're sitting here and leaders are like, yeah, we've had a tough year, and it was after another tough year, and it's like, what are we doing? People are kind of scrambling. There's some cyclical changes, some structural changes, and right now, leaders are trying to figure out how do I just finish this year as strong as I can, and how do I plan for next year? So you talk to these people, you talk to hundreds of leaders on a regular basis. So what are you hearing? What are the steps that leaders should be doing first to close out this year strong, but really to have a good plan going into 25?
Yeah, so hey, first off, congratulations to anybody that's still in the industry because they have survived the longest recession that we've ever experienced in the staffing industry. Yeah, we're going on, Dan, we're going on 36 months of declining numbers in the staffing industry, both on the professional side, light industrial side, all the way up and down the food chain. Couple of spots here and there that were highlights, but the industry overall, 36 months of declining numbers. So
Ah,
not easy. I've talked to a lot of leaders that are just trying to prop up their team and get their teams excited for 2025. So, hey, so what are leaders doing to close out the year 2025? First and foremost, they're just taking care of themselves, right? They're getting themselves in the right frame of mind to close the year out. There's no crying and mashing of the teeth. Oh my gosh, what a terrible year. The better the better leaders, they know how to take care of themselves. And whether that's they've got a small peer group, whether they have people that are outside the industry that they can talk to, whether they're reading certain things, whether they're going on retreats. There's so many resources out there that, what do leaders need to do in order to take care of themselves so that they can lead the troops? Doesn't matter. They come into the office, wherever they get on these Zoom calls. If they're not a shining light to their people in this the end of this 36 months, boy, it's hard to get people excited about 2025 when you see these, when you experience these kinds of longevity declining numbers. So that first and foremost, they're really taking care of themselves. And I also want to say is that they're not afraid to roll up their sleeves. They're not afraid to go on a QBR. They're not afraid to go out on some client visits and things like that. They're willing to get in, roll up their sleeves, get in with the people and do the work that everybody is doing. So closing out the year, the other dynamic, taking care of themselves, is one dynamic. The other thing that they're doing is they're two things. One, they're just really getting their hands around they're keeping their hands around their best clients. And so that is not only the quarterly business reviews, well thought out, meaningful quarterly business reviews. I know you've seen people when you ask, hey, do you do QBRs? We sure do. And then you look at like the data they're collecting
Yeah.
or what happens in those
Oh,
meetings, and you're
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but the I always say QBR with some great value add data that your clients are, thinking about, questioning about, trying to figure out with their whole human capital acquisition strategy. And we're not talking about salary surveys here.
Yeah.
We're talking about thinking on a different level. So they're really they're closing the year out by getting their hands around their key clients through the QBRs, the value add information, and as you said, they're really putting the final touches on the 2025 strategic plan, sales plan, all that planning. Look, if we don't plan, we plan to fail. We've heard that
Yeah.
many,
It's true.
many
It's
times.
true.
Yeah, yeah. And I've talked about this before. It depends, if I'm a half a billion in revenue, strategic planning looks very different to that company than somebody that's doing 100 million, which looks very different to somebody that's doing 15 million.
Yes.
And whether whether they utilize outside facilitators to facilitate through that process, but they're planning, right? They put an emphasis, they put a value on, hey, we've got a plan, we got to think through 2025. And the reason why they got to think through 2025 is because there are dynamics that are negatively affecting the staffing industry that are not going to go away in 2025. We cannot be thinking about the business. You know this. You and I've talked about this.
Yeah.
The way we sold a year ago, we can't sell like that in 2025.
No.
It's so we have to take into account these dynamics that are negatively affecting the staffing industry, and we need to figure out how to turn them into an opportunity. And that takes strategic thinking, conceptual thinking. And there's people on our team that, hey, they're tactical thinkers. They're not conceptual thinkers. And so
Yeah.
you got to take time, figure that stuff out, and then when you think you've got an answer or a response, oh, how are we going to implement that? And building out action plans, who's going to do this, who's going to do that, that sort of thing. So those are, and I could go into more detail if you want on some of that stuff, but uh,
Some of it for sure. So I think it's a kind of a good recap as leaders they're taking stock, taking care of themselves. They're putting the oxygen mask on first, right? You can't help out the people around you if you don't put the oxygen mask on first. So I think
amen,
that's actually
right?
important that leaders are
Amen.
doing that.
Yeah,
I think a lot of times if leaders panic and they try to put their people first, not that that's not a good thing, but they do it too soon and they burn themselves out. They can't properly serve and support their people. And almost you don't want to run into the burning building too soon, because it is 36 months. That's a long time to slide. So
we've never
yeah.
experienced it in the industry. Yeah.
So when you're saying you're putting in these planning and whatnot, what is the first thing that you would advise outside of, and I know the low hanging fruit for you managing roundtables, so I'm going to take that one out of the answer queue.
Yeah.
What is the first thing you would recommend to a leader if they really wanted to get their head right and put themselves in a good mindset to be able to strategically plan? What are some tips that they can actually do to set themselves up for success with planning?
Yeah, the first off, a good solid internal assessment, internal analysis. And so that is going to be looking at you got a recruiting function, sales function, back office function, you've got management, you've got work tasks, you've got technology, you've got cash flow, all that. So just do a deep dive. Do a deep dive internally on your organization. What's working, what's not working, focus groups, one-on-one interviews. So it's so valuable. Dan, I can't tell you how many times I've gone in And the companies that have hired me, you've probably had the same experience as well. Companies hire you, you either do focus groups or you do one-on-one interviews, and man, alive, do you uncover, you just uncover so much stuff
Yeah.
that, hey, if we could solve, I have so many stories I could tell you of how, like, in one conversation, we figured out how to make a sales function like that more effective, more efficient, where guys all of a sudden are getting more face-to-face appointments and connects. Uh, so do a deep, so number one, just you got to do a deep dive internal assessment. And it's always good to use outside people because why? After a while, you don't see the crack in the dish. You don't see, the fact that the window's smeared. You just you get used to it. It
Yeah.
just becomes common to us. And so then having fresh eyes, somebody from the outside to come in, take a look, do a quick either a down and dirty or a deep dive assessment, just to give the information. I mean, oh my gosh, that's just so invaluable there because that's going to throw off. My problem when we do my clients' problems when they do that is that when on the back end of a very good solid deep dive internal analysis, they end up with 8 or 9 key initiatives.
Yeah.
And of like, holy cow, I didn't realize that the foundation of the house over in the in the front corner is like all decayed and falling in. I didn't, and again, I can give
So I want
examples.
to I want to dig into that because that's actually a really interesting thing, Tom, is that happens, right? And I think a lot of times right now people are looking at what do I need to address, and whether they take a deep dive or it's just an analytical, intuition, they are coming up with like 8 or 9 or 10 things to deal with. How do you advise leaders to prioritize that? Like, how do you tell people what to pick first and how to tackle that list? Because that list in and of itself can become the reason that leaders don't move forward and they,
That's yeah, great question, Dan. I mean, hey, look, what's the business model,
yeah.
right? First off, what is the business model? Is it geographic expansion? Is it expansion via remote workers? Is it utilizing more offshore, nearshore resources? Is it low margin, high volume? Is it more direct hire? Well, like what is the business model, right? And then in 3 years from now, where do I want this business model to be? And ultimately, the answers to those questions will drive. If in 3 years I want to get here, then then it's easy to look and say, well, I've got to get a technology platform that can help me get there. I've got to figure out how to hire and attract and retain the right kind of that are going to stay with us for 5 to 7 years, whatever, versus the 18 months or the 2 year, whatever we see in the industry. So typically that's really what drives the prioritizing of those issues. You could develop that, and basically what that is a criteria that you're going to judge against that list of 8 or 9 things that need to get accomplished. And then the other thing is the old intuition, the gut. What does your gut say, right? It's you gotta trust your gut on issues that you just feel, gosh, if we could get this fixed, I know we're gonna increase productivity out of our recruiting team by 20%, like whatever.
Do you feel so I love that you mentioned intuition, but do you feel like some of the leaders are a little shell shocked right now with coming through the last 3 years and maybe they're second guessing their intuition and they're not as confident with
Oh my gosh. I mean, please, are you kidding me? The tech fatigue in our industry,
yeah,
no, no,
don't even get me
it's
started.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And then I mean, you've been to the conferences, you
Yeah,
got all the big ATS software. Oh, we need a new ATS system for our business. And then you walk around. I mean, after the second demo, your eyes are rolling back of your head. You don't
yeah,
even know what you're looking at. You
yeah.
go see a couple more demos. Nobody asks you, hey, what's your business model? And then is this the right software, the right technology to help us implement that business model in your geographic marketplaces?
Mm.
So there's tech fatigue. Now, throw on top of that AI. And by the way, AI is one of the threats to the staffing industry, and happy to talk about that. But because the buyers of staffing services are trying to figure they right now, as we're talking, they're trying to figure out how to utilize AI to get rid of staffing vendors. So if
Yes.
you're a staffing vendor, you better start thinking about how you can turn that threat into an opportunity. But hey, look, tech fatigue, AI. Oh my gosh. I mean,
Let's
I
go
mean,
down
what?
that vein a little bit. Let's go down because that is a hot topic. It's on everyone's mind. We've got a few sessions at the sales summit that actually are addressing AI and how to implement it. So, like, I agree with you. I actually believe that AI is one of the bigger threats to our industry than some of the past ones. People thought job boards were going to be really terrible threat, and LinkedIn would be a terrible threat. But like, AI has some real threat potential, and it's because of how buyers of staffing services are perceiving it, right? Their perception of it is fueling that threat. So what are some of the threats that you're seeing out there that you think are really that the industry needs to take hold of?
Yeah, so I would really encourage like anybody that is not or doesn't know anything about recruitment process outsourcing. I would encourage them to look into that. Look into recruitment process outsourcing because the RPOs are so far more advanced than the temp staffing, contract staffing firms in regard to AI. And why? Because they are much more embedded in the human capital acquisition strategy and process of their clients. And what they will tell you is that when you map out the fulfillment process of your clients, or if you look at your clients, your larger clients, human capital acquisition process, Dan, like 80% of that stuff is automated through AI, right? Today,
Yeah.
it's automated through AI. And these you walk around the conferences and these poor staffing guys are thinking, oh wow, I can use this to format resumes and write blogs, and my sales guys can use this for emails. And are you kidding me? I mean, that's like that's like that's like just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
I mean, their clients are looking at AI to basically automate the hiring process. Hey, and here's the other challenge. When you look at the communication preferences of the candidates, right? People that are under 30 years of age, 35 years of age, they'd rather be Dan, they'd rather, and there's some research on this.
Yeah.
They'd rather be talking to bots. They'd rather just, hey, can I just get on a website? And I've got, my
Yeah.
daughter Emma. She's looking for a new opportunity.
Yeah.
My son was working for John Deere. He's looking for they laid him off. Uh, we're going somewhere. They were both in town for something, and they're both talking in the back seat about looking for a job.
Yeah. And how are you like guru to the staffing industry? That this is the world you
Oh
live
yeah, no, they don't ask me anything. But I said to my wife, "Oh my gosh, you talk about a what is it called with the generation gap or whatever."
in. Yeah.
But they're talking, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" I mean, Dan, just like what they're doing, what they're like you and I. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but I mean, for me, I mean, I just started calling people I knew. I mean, it was all about
Yeah.
network.
That's what you
It
do.
just right. It's not them, well, should I do this? And well, I got online and I did this. And well, I sent an email and I did that. And I said, well, did you make a phone call? Did you call the recruiter? Why would I do that?
Yeah, it seems so foreign, and you're right, and that's actually where tools like Glide or Sense or what was here Fish Bullhorn
Yeah, hairfish.
automation
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
like those tools that are going to actually figure out ways to create these AI enabled intuitive journeys for the candidates to kind of meet them at the chatbot,
yeah.
the text message, the email, and kind of work them through a digital journey uh, to
So,
be up to a recruiter. Like those tools are really going to be beneficial to
so
recruit.
Dan, So Dan, back to like 10 minutes ago, strategy, right?
Yeah.
You have clients, buyers that are rapidly far, faster than us, figuring out using AI to automate the pro. You have candidates that are, want that. And then you have these staffing guys that think that, oh, once the economy turns around, it's going to go back to like, and we're going to do this and do that. And
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I
No,
mean,
this was a structural shift. This was
you're no, you're correct. It's not going back. And
yeah.
so that's why you've got to think strategically about how do I alter my business model and take advantage of like the new landscape. Somebody said to me the other day, it's the Who Moved My Cheese book. I think we all
Yeah.
read that, but it's like who moved my cheese? But that's really, frankly, I mean, that's what's going on in the industry. So that's really the size of it, is that you got on the candidate side and the buy side. And like if the staffing industry or these staffing companies don't like get somewhere, some value add or be somewhere in that process.
And that's the vision that I see, Tom, is that like if you want to add value, if you want to sell based on value to where you're providing a value to the client, the buyer of staffing services, buyers used to sort of buy talent in a sense, but now they're becoming more sophisticated. The demand is so great. They don't just want talent, they want to actually buy a system for talent acquisition. That they want to buy the model and they will partner with staffing agencies if a staffing agency can really master the entire recruitment marketing framework to be attract talent, segment talent, engage with talent, create a rewarding experience, effectively pipeline talent down to effective matching of talent into the right roles. If you can actually show that on a map and demonstrate your prowess, that will be valuable. Companies will still rely on you because that's now they're outsourcing, to your effect, the RPO, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
that's
Yes, get
really
that.
is going to be more
Amen.
interesting. And
Yeah.
if you build
Yeah.
efficiencies, you can do it cost effectively and still retain great profitability. Am I right?
Correct. Yes, correct.
So,
Absolutely.
uh,
Yeah.
preaching to the choir, man. I'm
Yeah,
I'm
good.
I'm
No,
getting
but that's
excited
but
about this
that's
today.
that's what we got to figure out in 2000. I mean, as there's that's what we got to figure out for 2025 and beyond. And so yeah, are these executives overwhelmed? Are these executives, I forget the word that you used when you asked that question. Absolutely. I mean, tech fatigue, overwhelmed with, the fast pace of things and hence and that's why, I mean, that's why these things like my roundtable are growing and other roundtable type peer groups are growing because these men and women, doesn't matter what industry they're in, these men and women are like they're it's changing too fast. I can't keep up.
Yeah.
I need a group of people that yeah, that can help me keep up. It's
So with that, and I got two questions left for you, and then I'm gonna let you get back to your day. For those that aren't familiar with like the roundtable model, like we hear the concept of a roundtable, and we probably envision a very large round table with people sitting around it. But just really quickly, lightning round, could you actually just break down for those that might not be familiar with what the roundtable model entails and how you manage that for them?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a combination of meeting there's a combination of meeting in person X number of times a year, combination of meeting on some smaller, 1 hour Zoom calls. We do a quarterly we call it a virtual dialogue, and that's open to all our members and only our members. And that's where we have a member that may like so, for example, we had a member that dropped an additional $3 million to the bottom line by outsourcing, offshoring his entire back office. And
Wow.
so we had him on, and he talked about why he did it, how he did it, what were the mistakes he made. If you were going to do it again, what would you do differently? So, and we usually get 50, 60 C-suite execs on those calls. So, in-person meetings, Zoom calls, virtual dialogues, and then we do like our facilitators will call in between the in-person meetings to make sure folks are, hey, you had an issue on Dan, you had a compensation issue on your at the last roundtable. How's it going? Did you change the plan? Did you get it resolved? That sort of thing. But ultimately, Dan, if you want to grow your company, you have to grow. And that's really what the roundtable is about. The roundtable program is really about helping people grow in their development. And we really call it a leadership development. We had a client that had been in Vistage for 10 years, and he attended his first roundtable. This back goes now maybe 2.5 years ago. Attended his first roundtable with us, and afterwards he came up to me and said, "Tom, I've been in Vistage for 10 years, and my Vistage group has never reached the level of vulnerability that I saw over the last 2 days." And so that's like people being really honest with each other
Wow.
about their blind spots, their faults, their egos, their misconceptions, their wild, I got a guy. Now, how many times have you heard that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
I got a guy, and they're gonna go chase. You're gonna do what? Uh, so that's really the benefit, is that these executives get a compassionate input on to help them grow and develop and change, so that in fact they can grow their business. It's so
Yeah.
that's kind of what happens at the round table, where you would think after 30 years I'd be bored, but if
Not in
I
this industry.
I love it, man. I I get more jazzed about the roundtables, because it's wow. I mean, the industry is just changing and morphing, and when we got such great clients there. And
I love that. I love that. And last question, not to put you on the spot, no one's going to hold you to this if you're terribly wrong, but what is 2025 going to hold for this industry? Are we gonna reverse the curve? Are we going to stop the downward slide? Are we coming back up, or is it more of the same? What are we doing here?
yeah, I think the first 2 quarters of the year probably likely to be flat, and then the back 2 quarters probability to see growth there. But
Okay.
it's going to be it's not going to be any like the economy. It's not going to be any great shakes or great. It's the information I look at, the economists that I connect with, and the data that I read suggests that we're going to see mild growth, the economic mild growth in 2025. For us in the staffing industry, we've got to take into account some of these dynamics that I was talking about that are negatively affecting us, and we have to position our businesses to turn those into opportunities. But it's gosh, I mean, I think that if a staffing company can get 3% growth in 2025 over 2024, they're going to be doing really well. I mean, if
Yep.
it's a little tiny business that's doing, 3, 4, 5 million in revenue, that's one thing. But middle market and enterprise size, yeah, it's probably going to be around 3% growth for 2025.
I like it. I see it the same way that we're going to basically kind of run some turbulence the first half, and then middle of the year, I think we're going to start to see some takeoff. So I see it the same way, my friend.
Yeah, good, good, good,
Tom,
good.
thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge. And if anyone wants to connect with you and follow up that dialogue or learn more about the roundtables for their business, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, visusgroup.com is our website. We've got all our information on there. You can find me on LinkedIn, Tom G. Kosnik. And it's myself. We've got a small team here in Chicago, and then we've got, a dozen or so subject matter experts that work with us to do all that wonderful stuff you said in the introduction that we do. So,
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. I'll get all the links right here on page. And he's a wealth of knowledge. He's been in this industry for 3 decades, in the ears and the minds of the staffing leaders of our industry. So probably no better thought leader to connect with at this time for strategic planning than Tom Kosnik. So Tom, thank you so much for being here, and I wish you a good rest of your year.
yeah, Dan, you're welcome, and happy to 2025.